Right, everyone, we are going to go ahead and get started. Welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are joining us from. My name is Heather Deer, and I am the Director of Family Engagement here at William and Mary. Thank you for joining us for our second webinar of our spring webinar series, Planning the Path to Registration. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. This session is being recorded and will be uploaded in the next couple of business days. Not immediately, but just in a couple of days, and we'll send you an email notification once that is ready and uploaded to our YouTube channel. You can always subscribe to our YouTube channel if you want to be notified as soon as that makes it to the YouTube channel, maybe just a little bit before that email goes out. Just another housekeeping tip, this session is geared toward our current William and Mary students who are about to start registration for the fall semester. This is not for any of our class of 2029 families who may be on the call. Maybe similar mechanisms, but a completely different timeline, different support structures in place to get your student ready for classes in the fall. So you can definitely listen in and hear what it's like for our current students and for their families, but this is definitely geared toward our current students. We will use the Q&A feature here in Zoom once we get started after Megan's presentation. But with that, I do want to turn it over to Megan to go ahead and get us started and really provide us an overview of resources, support structures, and ways that you all can support your students as they are navigating another registration period. Megan, thank you for being here with us.
Great. Thank you, Heather. I appreciate it. Can you hear me okay?
We
Excellent.
can.
Fantastic. Well, I want to echo Heather and say thank you all for taking time out of your day to come and listen to what I have to say about advising and registration. My office here, I'm the director of the Undergraduate Academic Affairs Office. And so my office is really what I consider a hub for academic advising and working with students. We have a team of professional advisors on staff here that can work with students. And then we also help facilitate the faculty advising model and connect students with all kinds of planning and academic resources across campus. So we're over here on the second floor of Ewell Hall. So hopefully your student has come to visit us at some point. But if not, have them stop by and see one of us and certainly ask any questions. So today, I just wanted to briefly kind of go over some things with you to walk through academic planning, registration, and then talk a little bit about some ways that you all as families and supporters can help students as they navigate this process, starting really at the end of this week and then all the way through really to the end of the semester. They'll kind of be working through and into the summer potentially some registration things. And then of course at the end, as Heather mentioned, we'll have the opportunity. I'd like to leave some time to answer your questions as well, knowing you probably have some ready for me there. So first things first, just thinking about academic planning here at William and Mary, when we talk about that, it probably sounds pretty familiar. It's really first and foremost looking at degree process or progress for students. So advising both with faculty and with staff in my office and across campus, with peers sometimes, with you all as supporters. Planning is really about looking at degree progress. Obviously, that's the biggest one, and working their way for requirements to graduation. And of course, there are tools that help students work on that with their own and in partnership with their advisor. There's the catalog, there's degree works. All of those things will help students track requirements and progress. And then they certainly can work with folks on campus to help them navigate all those things. So whether that's call curriculum, prerequisite courses, courses for their major or minor, anything like that, we're looking at all those pieces and parts for them and helping them come up with a plan that makes sense for them. And then potentially, obviously, looking at post-grad a little bit too. So part of that exploration is certainly course selection and registration, and we're here to help support those pieces. And so looking at the literal courses that students will be looking to take, general courses that meet requirements, things like that, and then helping them through the steps of registration to get those courses is all sort of part of that plan. The other part of that is really helping students connect with opportunities. And so you can think about their advisor as a connector in that way. So thinking about career opportunities, graduate studies, course opportunities, research. We can certainly serve as, like I said, that kind of hub for connecting students with lots of resources on campus that can help them supplement their academic plan and really help them towards their goals. So academic planning is really looking at what are your goals and how are your academics going to help you reach those goals. So they've got the Charles Center for Research. There's the Office of Career Development and Professional Engagement that can talk about internships and how that works with applied learning. There's lots of different ways that we can help connect students with opportunities based on the things that we can discuss as part of their degree progress. So they're all kind of connected. We can also help students that are, finding themselves in struggle or that they need a little extra support. Um, and that can be in the area that they're planning to study, or maybe it's some of the general education requirements. We can help students connect with some of those pieces across campus, like academic well-being or care support services. Again, as all part of that plan of how they're doing, what do their grades look like, what's their degree progress, and what are some ways that we can help connect them with lots of resources. And then finally, we can also think a little bit about through my office is the idea of fellowships and planning for fellowships and scholarships that typically take place post-grad. So when they're kind of done here and they've done their planning, thinking about maybe what are some opportunities for them in that realm and advising them through that. And certainly graduate programs and things like that as well. So we really cover from the time they step foot on campus all the way through to even potentially when they leave us and go off into the world to do other things, because that's all really tied to the work and the academic planning that they're doing here at William and Mary. So what does that look like? Who are the people that are helping them? How does that work? For advising support, they have a number of different avenues, some of which I've already talked about. So there's certainly professional advisors in my office that help supplement their faculty advising and really just help them navigate sometimes policy and big picture things, or just kind of an extra resource for students as they're working through their academic plan. They are all assigned a pre-major advisor. So when they enter William and Mary and they come in as a student, they're assigned a pre-major advisor, and that's based off of what they indicated, in the weeks before they arrived on campus. So some of them were still working through maybe their transfer student and they were working through the transfer process somewhere, or they were just graduating high school when they were coming in and maybe had an idea of what they wanted to do. And so we assign that pre-major advisor based on that. So we support them and kind of our office facilitates that process. They're required to meet with them in the first 2 semesters, and then they work on a plan that works best for them in meeting until they declare their major. So the pre-major advisor process is really where they first learn how to navigate that partnership in advising. So they will have goals and ideas that they go to their advisor, their faculty advisor about, typically within a discipline they're somewhat interested in. And then the advisor will also give them input based on kind of their goals and help them think through those processes. Again, connecting them to resources. That may change in the time here. So often students will come in thinking they're going to do one thing and that changes, which is totally fine. That's where they can really utilize my office and our team here to help navigate what are their next steps for finding either the next department to talk to ask questions, or is it a matter of reassigning their pre-major advisor? Typically, we encourage students to continue working with their resources until they declare their major. And then we can help them navigate what those resources might be. So this is the advising period. We just entered it yesterday. So it'll be starting yesterday through the 28th. And that's just kind of dedicated time where we can update faculty advisors on, current information for registration. And that is also when advisors will typically reach out to their students and their advisees to set up some time to meet. So normally the faculty advisor will reach out, but of course, people are humans and lives are busy. And so if that doesn't happen for a student, or they just want to get way ahead of it and know that they want to set something up, the student can certainly reach out to their assigned advisor and set up a time to meet. And they can do that at any point. So we've structured in their first few semesters some requirements for them. But then after that, again, that's that partnership. They reach out at times when they need extra support. They need to set up a meeting, drop in at office hours, lots of opportunities to kind of engage with their advisor. The next step after they've gotten to the point where they can declare, they've earned 39 credits, they can declare a major here at William and Mary. And so there are a few different ways by which students can really identify their major advisor. We don't match them at that point. That's something that that major advisor is going to work with them really all the way through to graduation. And so that's something that they want to make a decision based on interests or a relationship maybe they already have, or research, things like that. So there are a couple different ways that students can identify their major advisor. They can think about who they took a class with. Oftentimes that's the case. They took a class they really enjoyed, they liked the faculty and their style, they got a rapport with that faculty member, and they can certainly request that faculty be their major advisor. They can also just look online if, let's say, they haven't had a chance to really dig in. Maybe they've taken one course in their intended major too, and it wasn't quite the right fit with those faculty. And so they can also look at, the faculty webpage. They can go to the department, take a look. Most faculty, I would say, have some sort of research area that they highlight. So sometimes it's a matter of finding somebody who's doing something really interesting or something that student is really interested in studying more about and reaching out to them and saying, hey, I think your research sounds really cool. Would you be willing to work with me as a major advisor? Faculty are very accustomed to those kinds of requests. And just like most humans, I would say they're really excited to talk about the things they're interested in, especially with other students and peers that are interested in the same things. So that is not unusual to just sort of reach out. It feels a little cold call for students. I think it can be a little awkward. And again, like our office is here, the pre-major advisor is also helpful to kind of help them navigate those next steps and kind of finding their major advisor. Sometimes it is their pre-major advisor. Sometimes it's just a great fit from that point forward and they keep their pre-major advisor and convert them to a major advisor and off they go. Sometimes that's the case. And then sometimes they really don't know where to start. And so students can, again, reach out to our office or reach out to the chair of the department. So again, that's all online. Students can go and find the page. They can find the chair. And again, chairs are accustomed to that. So it may feel a little unusual to approach a chair of a department, but students can just reach out and say, hey, I'm really interested in studying what you study. And I'd like some help trying to find somebody to help support me. So all of those options are all good ones. And just like anything, if they find that that isn't the right fit for them, ultimately, they can change their major advisor. There's lots of different steps they can take there. So that person's going to support them all the way from when they declare until they are walking across that stage getting their degree. The last piece is pre-professional program advisors, which is kind of a mouthful. But what that is talking about is there are typically some professional staff in professional schools and also some faculty who support students in law, pre-health, which includes pre-med nursing, OT, PT. There is a faculty member who can talk about engineering and kind of how that looks at William and Mary, business. Um, I'm sure I'm forgetting one off the top of my head, but those programs that are meant to kind of support students in a profession of some kind, so specific training that has to happen for students to go into a profession, those are also supported by faculty and sometimes, education is the other one I wasn't thinking of, sometimes professional staff that can help support students. And again, that's available through our office if they want to just kind of start here because they have a question, we can point them in the right direction, or there are people listed on the website as well that again, those faculty and those staff are really used to people reaching out and saying, hey, I'm interested and I want to go pre-med. We have a survey students can fill out now that helps match them with somebody in the pre-med advising. So there are lots of opportunities there for them to talk about a professional program and what that looks like. And so this is really leading up to the idea of registration at this point. This is kind of top of mind right now. That's going to start really this Friday. And that process is really just in the thick of it and has started actually yesterday for summer courses. So all of that is kind of helping students while they're managing all their other responsibilities at the same time, kind of, being there as support to help plan this process. So we just made a change to registration this time last year was the first time that we went through this process. And so each semester we've learned a few things and have tweaked and made adjustments as we go. But the overall structure is going to look the same. So students are now getting the practice of doing this process, which is building a cart, getting a schedule back, engaging an ad drop, making changes to their schedule. So the cart building period will happen this Friday through next Friday at noon. So the 21st through the 28th. And the nice thing about building a cart is that it's not live registration, so they have time to meet with somebody, build the cart out, change things, adjust, and it just has to be complete by next Friday. So some students will do that right away. Some students will take their time and do it a little bit later, but they have to build what we consider a primary cart, which lists their requests for courses, any alternatives, they prioritize things. And I will say in the past few semesters, the registrar's office has really built out a really large repository of information, which can be a little overwhelming, but they've done a nice job in kind of giving resources for every step of the process for students. And then they are available in the registrar's office to help navigate the function of it. So like, how does it work in Path? And I'm trying to do this thing and I need some help. And then we will have some extra drop-in hours that are happening for students. We typically have drop-in hours 1 to 3 on Thursday, but then we'll have some additional drop-in hours that we publish in Student Happenings for students that they can just drop in and ask questions about, like, a little bit of the function, like how do I prioritize? What if I really, really need to do my foreign language proficiency? how do I make that happen? Or do I have the right amount of courses? Does the things I'm putting in here make sense for my plan? Anything like that, we're happy to help them think through that process while they're building the cart before it closes on the 28th. We have appointments too here, so they can meet with an advisor by appointment, but I will say it's just busy this time of year. And so if they haven't already tried to do that, they may be finding it a little more difficult to get a 30-minute appointment, but that's why we offer some extra hours so that if they can't get that, then they have some additional time. So once the cart building process is done, then it will basically what they've input into their cart will be processed. And it's processed by social class priority, basically first. There are some other priority registrations that kind of happen in there, but it's all done on the back end. So before it used to be that students had to log in a certain time because that's when their social class was registering. And that's how we structured it. Now everybody builds a cart at the same time. Their cart goes to process, and it basically just goes through rounds of registration, trying to find seats for students based on what they put in their cart. What I will say is that students can put in, like, I think it's 30 credits in their cart. And the more, what I tell students is that each student's prioritizing is going to be personal and kind of how they want to work through that. And they work with their pre-major advisor or their major advisor to think through that plan. And then the more options that they can give that system to find them an open seat, the better. So I will take any section of this course. I will take any of these 3 courses. They can load their primary card up with more credits than they obviously will take. And then the system will only allow them to register for, the maximum of 16 credits for most students to start with. So it doesn't hurt to put more options in. The more places it can look for a seat, the better off they are. And it may mean they get a full schedule in this first round, and it may mean that they don't quite get a full schedule, and that's what add drop is for. So they will have their schedule by April 7th in the afternoon typically, and then they can make changes during the add drop period, which will start on the 10th, I believe, after that. And so they will have multiple opportunities, and that runs through the summer until the incoming class gets in to register. So that is really basically through July, they can make changes to their schedule. So the nice thing about spring is there is some runway, there's some time to make changes, there's some time for changes to happen in schedule, where we add sections or make classes bigger. We can kind of make some adjustments going into the fall. So there's lots of different touch points. So if it doesn't work out perfectly for them after cart building, they can certainly regroup with an advisor and kind of talk through what their next steps should be and work through that process that way. Okay, so the question is, how can you all help? Well, first things first, you should give yourself credit. You can help by being informed. So this is really helpful coming to things like this. I will try and drop some links into, oh, thank you, Heather. I will try and drop some more links too into the chat for you. And certainly I can give Heather some links after we've finished this. So when she puts that out, you can have those. But really, a lot of it's on our website. How to find a major advisor's on there, registration tips are on there. There's lots of good resources. So you being informed on the process certainly helps your student for sure. Maintaining an open line of communication with your students. So things change for students, and we find, like I said, they might come in thinking they want to do one thing, they decide they want to adjust, or they've got questions, or they're trying to navigate what to do. Like, you just having that open line of communication and helping them figure that out and encouraging them to use their resources is really one of the best things that you all can do to support your student, because they're here. And so it's a lot, and so it can feel a little overwhelming. So helping them navigate those resources can be really helpful, encouraging them to check in with somebody. Typically, we can always connect you with the next person if it's not us specifically, is really just helping them do that and encouraging them to read their email, which I know is hard. There's a lot of emails too, but that is the primary way that we communicate information to students. And really, if they didn't read it the first time, even just searching back in their email to see if there's something in there can be helpful. Certainly also keep in mind celebrating their achievements. So I know, like, in the stress of things, it can be really hard to think about, those maybe the smaller good things that happen. And even if they can get most of their schedule set and they maybe have one class to add or change, like, that's still really good. So again, like, taking a moment to kind of celebrate their achievements. Once they declare their major, we have a declaration week happening for the first time this semester to kind of help encourage students to celebrate that, because it is kind of a milestone. You're declaring your intent to do something with yourself here at William & Mary and beyond. And so really taking a moment to kind of celebrate those things and helping them navigate that. So lastly, I just wanted to kind of toss up some resources that we have again this time of year. It's also still midterm season, right? So they're still taking midterms, they're getting midterm grades. So, encouraging them to check those and be kind of aware where they are in those classes is always really helpful this time of year. And then if they need some extra support or they've got questions, there's lots of resources again on campus that can help them navigate those things. So just wanted to remind you of the things that exist out there and across campus to help support students in addition to advising and really in partnership with that. Because again, everything kind of everything kind of touches everything. A student doesn't always just come in here with just questions about courses. They're a whole being in themselves. So I want to make sure just to remind you that there's lots of places that they can get answers. And again, we're happy to connect them to. And so, yes, I see Heather mentioned in the chat. I am happy to take questions um, and answer anything that you or if Heather has any that she knows are hot off the press. Feel free to toss them my way.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Megan. We did have a few submitted ahead of time, but Families Now is a great time to go ahead and drop those questions into the Q&A. We will take as many as we have time for. Want to start with one question that we got that was, my freshman is convinced that if she doesn't decide and start on courses toward a major this year, that she can't finish in 4 years. Is this true?
It is not likely to be true. I think there are only probably very rare cases where sometimes, like let's take the business school, for example. I would say sometimes if a student isn't thinking about the kinds of things that they need to work on in their first few semesters, it doesn't mean they can't do it in four. It just means they have to be a little strategic in how they do it. Um, but Heather and I are talking. I've talked to folks here. Like I've changed my major a couple times. We encounter students here that think again like they're on one path and they want to change to another, and they can still certainly do things in 4 years. The nice thing about the liberal arts curriculum is it's built to help students explore. So the intention is you really are going to kind of take those first 4 semesters to try some things and use the college curriculum to explore those pieces, a potential major, maybe a minor. Like it is built that way. Something I appreciate about William Mary to allow students to have that and to have that space. And I would just say, if they're thinking about doing something early on, talk to their advisor about that, so that if there are things that they need to kind of be aware of or pay attention to, they can help cue them into those things. But otherwise, it is probably very unlikely that if they don't do all of their major courses right now, that they will not be able to graduate. The curriculum is not really, it's built in the opposite way of that, so they should be in good shape. But again, certainly if they're worried about it, come find somebody, find their advisor, and just make sure they check in and they can get some reassurance that way.
Wonderful. That is great news. Speaking of majors, when do majors need to be declared, and what is the typical declaration process?
That's a great question. So students have to declare their major by the time they've earned 54 credits. And what that means is they have to have the courses completed. So like there are probably lots of students who might be in progress with almost 54 credits right now based on what they're in for the spring, but they won't be required to until the fall because they need to actually have earned those. We want to make sure those are really there before we say you have to do it. So you can declare as early as 39 earned. And transfer students and dual enrolled students who came in with a lot of transfer credits can wait until they have 39 William and Mary credits to enroll or to declare, excuse me. But they don't have to. So like if they have 39 transfer and dual enrolled and William and Mary credits, that's fine. If they want to wait a little longer, they won't get the same prompts at 54 as students who, have started here William and Mary with no transfer or no dual enrollment. So there is a little bit of space given there too. So yes, they will have to declare by the time they've earned 54. Otherwise, they will get a hold eventually. And then the deadline to declare really for each semester is slightly different depending on kind of how they want to plan. Typically, we encourage students who are ready to declare before registration early on. You have to declare, for guaranteed, like to have it declared on your record by the time cart building happens. It's typically like 2 or 3 weeks before cart building. And so, we want to encourage students if they've decided, like, get it declared, like, get it on your record and move forward. It just helps kind of clear the way for them a little bit with registration if they've decided. So each semester can vary slightly, but you can really declare it really functionally at any time during the semester. So they just have to sign a piece of paper with their faculty advisor, meet with them, make a plan, sign off on the paperwork, and get that to the registrar's office. But as far as big picture, it's 39 they can and 54 they need to, otherwise they'll get a hold eventually. So we will encourage them that way to declare their major so we make sure that they're in good shape and don't delay.
Okay. And
Yeah.
is that major decision binding? So once they declare a major, is that
Great.
like we are locked in, no changes? I have guesses as to the answer on that one, but what is the process if someone decides maybe this wasn't the choice I thought I was making?
Yes, a great question. And no, it's not. It's binding in that if you don't change it, that's what you have. And so we have to make sure that if, we often talk to students who are making decisions, they're kind of waiting. It's always good to change. It's always good to change and get things in place, and just put them in place because it isn't binding in that way. You can fill out a new form, get a new signature, submit that form, make that change. Um, I- and same with declaring a minor too. So that, again, there's another form that's involved because we love a form here, about declaring a minor. And oftentimes students kind of wait, but it's nice to be able to work through that process and get that declared, and then you can drop that if they end up not needing it. So you only need a major to graduate from William and Mary, just one, just a major. They could double major or they could major in minor. Those are the options that they have as far as combining curriculum. But yeah, it's not binding in that way. They can certainly make changes. And again, they can make changes to their advisor. Like if that doesn't seem to be the right fit, it's okay. They can find an advisor that makes more sense for them, or maybe it's in a different area, something like that. They can make a change if they need to with that too. Again, just another form, and they can just do that.
Wonderful.
Great question.
Two more major related questions, and then we'll move on to a different topic. Will declaring a minor this week help students get any sort of priority towards classes in fall 2025?
So we do a couple of things. We put a few things in place to help support typically upperclassmen and making sure that they get what they need to stay on track for graduation, because obviously your timeline gets shorter and shorter as you move. And so what William Mary has done is put some things in place. And one of those things is what we can are called major restrictions. And so during cart building and that first processing, and then the first day of ad drop, when that opens, we will keep major restrictions on, which means if you're not declared as that major, you may not have access to certain courses to make sure that students who are declared that major can get into those requirements. We do not have the same thing for minor restrictions. So minor restrictions don't exist. So if your student hasn't declared their minor yet, it's not a problem. It's not going to help or hurt them to declare their minor at this point. There are no minor restrictions. They would just register for the courses if they can during cart building or during the ad drop period. And again, if they work with that department, sometimes, departments have specific ways in which they support their minors. Overall, the minor they can just register for during the typical cart building and ad drop period. So yeah, no stress. And again, at this point, the deadline for declaring the major for guaranteed for registration was, I think, the 7th of March. So if they haven't done it by now, it's okay. They should still do it. Like get it in if they're ready and they have that paper, go ahead and get it in. It may be ready by the end of cart building, but if it's not, it's okay. That's why there's lots of ad drop periods and ways for them to make changes to their schedule.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And my last major related question for now is it possible to have a double major and a minor or a major and two minors?
So there is not a process by which you can have three things basically declared on your transcript. If a student So there's a couple different ways you can help your students frame this, I think. There are lots of ways that we can promote the things we do that maybe aren't on their transcript specifically, but can be highlighted in a resume. So we spend a lot of time developing with students things that they can highlight through their resume that talks about what they concentrated in, or that they also did coursework that would be equivalent of um, another major, basically the way it is in the catalog. There are ways to kind of highlight the fact that they've done that work, even if it isn't typically noted on their transcript. And then honestly, I don't know how many employers are looking at, or grad schools obviously are, but I don't know how many employers are typically looking at transcripts, certainly after maybe their first job. And so helping them kind of reframe that and being able to tell their story in a way that promotes what they've done, even if maybe it isn't specifically on their transcript. And then they can make a decision on what they want, like what combination of those things they want to declare ultimately that will help them when they're done here. But there are definitely ways in which to highlight all of the work they've done and the studies they've done, even if they aren't noted on transcript specifically. So definitely, again, something to talk about, the career office with or their advisor, depending on what they're doing. There are great resources in crafting that narrative for themselves to make sure that they can highlight those things.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I was going to add, definitely make sure if a student just has this menu and bevy of options of things that they've concentrated in, and there's just not enough space on that transcript to capture it all, making sure that they are starting early with the Career Center, our career development and professional engagement team to know, okay, what does need to be declared as a minor and what does need to be declared as a major based on the career path that they're hoping to take or the professional studies that they're hoping to engage in after being at William and Mary, and really working toward that perspective and narrative of how are they branding those opportunities that they've had. Sounds like it doesn't mean they can't have those opportunities.
Yeah.
They can certainly still explore all of that curriculum and do all of that rich work. But maybe it goes and is highlighted on a resume or a CV as opposed to their actual transcript. So something to keep in mind.
I will say too, in my previous time here at William Mary, I worked with the business schools. I worked in advising students in business and thinking about oftentimes would have a double major, kind of primary versus secondary. They get one degree, so they get a Bachelor of Business Administration, a Bachelor of Arts, or a Bachelor of Science. And so sometimes just navigating which degree they want to have on their diploma and what does that mean. And for business, it was an English diploma versus Latin sometimes in arts and sciences. So there are lots of ways and lots of things to think about when thinking about how to declare all those things. And again, have the conversation. It's a good one to have. So with many people.
We've gotten a couple of questions about support structures and any adjustments in place in the process for student athletes. So, any advice for how student athlete families can support their student as they navigate registration? I think Megan and I were both talking about, especially, I think it's their schedules are so busy and so full, and we have so much respect for the way that our student athletes navigate the academic experience at William and Mary. So, Megan, any advice for those families?
Yeah, again, I feel like a little bit of a broken record, but I want to encourage them. They have a great support structure within athletics between their coaches, and then there's advising team, a team there that helps. Kathleen and Taylor are great resources for things. So what I would say is really be communicative with that team to start with about their needs and what they're running into, because sometimes coaches don't know. And so sometimes it's just nice to know that like, hey, I'm a psych major and all my classes somehow are on Tuesday, Thursdays, and that's something that's popping up for me because sometimes there is some flexibility, sometimes, not all the time, on, kind of what they put in place from the athletic side. And if they're really struggling, finding stuff to engage in that academic team for athletics, and then certainly talk to their advisor about that as well, to help them navigate. There are some times in the past, and I can't remember exactly if we're doing it this way or if there's a slight variation for this semester, but in the past we have looked at prioritizing students who are in season in sports when we do that registration run on the back end. So not only social class, but also thinking about students that are in season. Sometimes we can kind of run registration in that way, to help navigate that process a little bit on the backside for students to give them some more opportunities. So I would just say make their concerns known so that somebody can help bring that to a place where maybe we can find a resolution is probably the best thing to do, so that sometimes we're just not aware that there is a conflict that's happening in the same way. And so the more people they can kind of talk with about that, the better. And then they've got a really great team there, like I said, that can help support them.
Yeah. I'm going to focus in a little bit on something that you just said. It was specific to student athletes, but I think it applies to everyone. And families, I think oftentimes you can be one of the first people who, if there is something that's getting in the way of their registration process or something they're stuck on in cart building, or they're like, I can't see a path forward, so there is no path forward, or
Yeah.
um, you may be the first person that they call and tell that to. And so I think what's really important for the team at William and Mary is that when students take the initiative to go to the drop-in hours, to stop at the table in Sadler if they're tabling, to walk over to Ewell and just say, "Hey, I'm running into this thing." Because it may be something new that we haven't experienced before, or it's something that we now have some like tried and true advice on how to help students navigate. So, during this registration process, student athlete or no, if your student calls you or texts you and is like, "Oh my goodness, this thing, I don't know what to do with this thing during registration, and this feels a little hopeless at this point," just making sure that the student has made someone know, whether it's their advisor, the team in academic advising and OUAA, the registrar's office, whatever it is, just making sure that they have made someone aware so that we can help them troubleshoot whatever that is and give them some advice, whether it's lessons learned or help them navigate a new scenario that we haven't run into.
100%. And encourage them not to wait. I know that, and I appreciate that sometimes students are like, oh, that'll probably work out, right? Like I'll wait. But certainly bringing it to our attention, even if we can't do anything in the immediate about it, it certainly helps. And then it becomes a little less of a crisis if it's kind of on our radar already. So, like I said, not everything is a quick fix, but it does help us to know that, hey, like this is popping up for a lot of students who are interested in sociology or interested in biology, right? It helps us to, the more voices we have to that, the better. So, yeah, I agree. That is really applicable for all students too.
Can you talk a little bit about the new School of Computing, Data Science, and Physics? It seems like there may be a shortage of classes. And I'm just wondering, Megan, from your perspective, how you anticipate over the coming semesters that may change, or what advice you're giving to students now who are like, I am interested in the new school and I want to be part of the new school. How are advisors tackling some of those conversations?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, like all things when they're in transition, we're probably going to discover a lot of things along the way. So, this is my annual plug for patience, as we do for most things, where we're trying to navigate exactly what that looks like as we develop something that hasn't existed here on campus. What I can say is the good news is nothing dramatically is changing within those departments that will look all that different in the immediate for students as they're navigating. I don't know what that brings for the future. It could mean that there are maybe some more courses that are available as they kind of maybe build out faculty a little bit differently, or maybe in different areas as they develop what the mission is for that school and how that looks. And so things may change a little bit, and we'll see what that looks like going into future semesters and kind of availability for courses and size of courses and things like that. Um, but for now, what I can say is that like there will still be those courses offered. There won't be a barrier for students to get to those courses. It's not all of a sudden going to look dramatically different for those students who are engaging in the courses that will be kind of huddled together now in a new school. So kind of the way that I think about it is we're sort of taking departments that exist and their structures and kind of grouping them all together now in their own entity. And so everything that existed will still exist for undergraduate students, and it shouldn't look all that different to them yet. It may in the coming semesters, as they come online and they start to develop their own plans, it may look slightly different. But for now, it's going to pretty much be, the way that they've experienced it so far. Still declare all those majors and engage in those courses. And then I think I'm excited to see what happens as we develop what opportunities they have to maybe do more research or, offer different specializations or kind of what that looks like for them as they develop those pieces. So I think that answered your question, but let me know if it didn't.
I think it did as well. I think the main point there is that our new school is new, and so it's in a little bit of transition, but there are still wonderful opportunities for students. And I think just checking in with their advisors again about how to maximize their schedule. And I would anticipate that in the next year, 2 years, that will really grow and develop its own personality. So,
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
Okay. I have a question here, and families, if you want to get in those last questions, we have just a few more minutes. We're going to wrap up around 12:45, so just a few more minutes with Megan. Question about how to register for an internship, and do they need to line up an internship first before registering for an internship? How does that process typically work?
Yeah, so internships for academic credit are great. They're a really great way as we think about applied learning. You'll hear a lot of talking about that and really to practice those skills or learning in the classroom, do internships. We're happy to have them do that work. When thinking about that, they should get their internship first. So the idea is they've got something in place. They will need a supervisor at their internship site. They will need a faculty supervisor that will help them develop their academic piece. So academic credit for internship isn't necessarily for just doing the work at an internship. It's for doing the work at an internship and then retranslating that back into the academic world. And that's why they're going to work on that partnership between their supervisor at an internship and the faculty here on campus. And it could be their advisor or it could be a different faculty. It doesn't have to be. So they can choose who they'd like to work with here on campus. And then certainly however that works for their internship. So they kind of want to reach that agreement first. They want to have a plan in place. So they've got their internship secured because ideally they would do that internship no matter what. So that's the experience is still good whether they get academic credit or not. But if they'd like that credit, then they would work with their faculty advisor, and there's a form that they would complete in conjunction with those pieces that explains what their project is and their academic plans in relation to their internship. The internship supervisor signs off, the faculty signs off, and then we work with the registration process. So the idea is get their internship in place, get their project in place, complete the form, everybody signs off, and then it converts into a course that then is given for credit. So get your internship first and then work for academic credit after that. And again, you can work with the career office to do that piece. There's lots of resources online about, how the best path in each department for securing their internship for credit. So we're really just doing a good old search. And the website is helpful to kind of get connected with those pieces for sure. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Mhm.
Okay, I think our last question here would be, where is the best place to get advice for students who are having trouble deciding on a major?
So it can seem really intimidating if, let's say, that they're with a chemistry faculty because they thought maybe that's what they were going to do, and then maybe they want to change to philosophy. Let's just pick opposite ends. So I know it can be a little intimidating, a little uncomfortable to talk to that advisor in chemistry, but that you're maybe thinking of changing, but you totally can. So if they feel comfortable, they can kind of get themselves over that hump of saying, I don't really want to do what you do necessarily. Here's what I'm thinking. Part of a pre-major advisor's responsibility is to help them work through that decision-making process. So that is absolutely something they can talk with their faculty advisor about. If that doesn't feel like necessarily the right fit, faculty that they're interested in the department they might be considering is a good one. So they've got a few different options that they want to think about, working with instructors they've taken classes with, kind of bounce these ideas there. And then obviously they're always welcome to come here. And we often work with students who are undecided and trying to navigate things. Obviously, departments are the experts in their courses and like specific things about their degree programs and navigating opportunities there. And then our office can also just help big picture think about what do you want to do? How do you want to explore that? And we also partner with the career office on tools that they have to help students explore those things. So they've got lots of different interest inventories and things that students can engage in that help them think big picture. There's even a site that's called What Do I Do with This Major that helps students think about I want to, major in this. What does that open for me to do after I'm done? So come here. We're happy to help connect you to all those things. Or if you want to start at the career office, that's absolutely fine there too. And they can help you with that sort of thought process of, I don't really know. Here's what I'm thinking, and how do I help narrow that down? So any of those opportunities are good. And really just again, tell somebody. Tell somebody. Tell your roommate. Like I'm sure they may have an idea too, you know.
Beautiful. And
Yeah.
I also think too, families, you will be, like I mentioned earlier, one of those resources. So I
Yeah.
think asking open-ended questions, helping them explore and encouraging that exploration. I think
100%.
sometimes students can feel a pressure to decide. And I think if you can take the pressure off and say, let's explore and see what feels good or what you're interested in and ask those open-ended questions. That permission from you to do that exploration can go a long way as well. So just would encourage you to keep that in mind if your student is struggling right now to decide on a major, and they do kind of open that door to have that conversation with you to keep in mind that that you're going to be a great support system for them and point them in the right direction and ask those questions to help them get there along the way. It means they have a lot of trust in you to come to you with some of those questions. So that is all that we have time for right now. Thank you, Megan, so much for joining us over
Thank
your
you.
lunch hour and providing such great information for us, for always being such a constant in our webinar series, whether it's the spring, the summer, or the fall. Megan is a wonderful, wonderful partner for us in family engagement. So thank you. Families, this session has been recorded and will be uploaded to our YouTube channel in the next couple of days. You can subscribe to be notified as soon as it's uploaded, or we'll send an email notification out by the end of the week letting you know that it's ready to go. But hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your day, and we will see you on the next one. Bye,
Sounds good,
everyone.
people. Take care.